Microsoft has been doing a lot, Xbox has been doing a lot. This is a massive piece of news that is going to be affecting the gaming industry in terms of an incredibly wide breadth. And I waited a couple of days before making this video because I know it's going to be huge, I know it's going to be impactful, and I know that there are dominoes that are going to be falling even after I make this video, because there are going to be knock-on effects on the fact that Microsoft is laying off 9,000 employees, which is basically 4% of the company's global workforce. Keeping in mind. So, a lot of them are hitting the Microsoft gaming space, more specifically Xbox. So let's actually talk about what the hell is going on here, starting off with the fact that Bethesda was bought by Xbox, and so basically games that were originally going to be PlayStation exclusive did end up coming to Xbox. Basically things like Deathloop as an example, and Tango Gameworks' Tokyo something or other, I can't remember what the name of the game was called, but basically that also was originally a PlayStation 5 exclusive that came to Xbox later on. We also got the Xbox Activision Blizzard acquisition, which is a line that I kept saying over and over again was the worst thing to happen. I was neither a fan of the fact that Bethesda was bought, and I'm not a fan of the fact that Activision Blizzard was bought. Yes, Activision Blizzard was an awful company. Yes, it was run by the most evil man imaginable in the gaming space. But I think it's probably fair to say that Xbox is a far worse company than Activision Blizzard, and Phil Spencer is a far worse person than Bobby Kotick is, given everything that we're going to be talking about moving forward. So I just kind of went down the comments here, and there was this one comment that really struck, I think, things in a very interesting way, and I don't think this guy realized how right he was going to be, where he said, so Krabik says, in response to this Activision Blizzard acquisition being, 1 year anniversary, Krabik here said, it's Microsoft. They bought the company and they'll do a series of bad decisions for the next 2 years. That was 9 months ago. So within the year of this being mentioned, tying it back to the main story here, Microsoft is letting go of 9,000 employees, which is 4% of its workforce in another round of cuts this year. And that's worth keeping in mind the fact that Microsoft has been letting go of people throughout last year and throughout this year. And this is a big chungus of a letting go of people that I think we'll see in quite some time. So, employees in Xbox's Xbox division known as Microsoft Gaming are being hit hard by these layoffs. Although exact numbers and divisions are not yet known, Xbox Phil Spencer said in a message to the team, and we do actually have the full message right here. So, I'm going to be jumping in a little bit, talking about some of the stuff that Phil Spencer mentions, so stick with me on this. I am going to be making hopefully some chapters for being able to move around the video a little bit more easily. So, here we go. Phil Spencer says, today we are sharing decisions that will impact colleagues across our organization. To position gaming for enduring success and allow us to focus on strategic growth areas, we will end or decrease work in certain areas of the business and follow Microsoft's lead in removing layers of management to increase agility and effectiveness. Out of respect for those impacted today, the specifics of today's notifications and any organizational shifts will be shared by your team leaders in the coming days. I recognize that these changes come at a time where we have more players, games, and gaming hours than ever before. Our platform, hardware, and gaming roadmap have never looked stronger. The success we're seeing currently is based on tough decisions we've made previously. We must make choices now for continued success in the future years, and a key part of that strategy is the discipline to prioritize the strongest opportunities. We will protect what is thriving and concentrate efforts on areas with the greatest potential, while delivering on the expectations the company has for our business. This focused approach means we can deliver exceptional games and experience for players to come. So, before I even read any further into this, it's worth keeping in mind that we are talking about people being laid off and being removed from their jobs being so basically games being cancelled, studios being shut down, and out of all of this, he says we have more players, games, and gaming hours than ever before. Yes, you have more games than before. Have your games gotten any better? Yeah, sure they have, but there's still nothing like the first-party PlayStation games that we've been getting on the PlayStation side. Nintendo is making significantly better games than Xbox, and a lot of Xbox's games come to PC, so why on earth would anyone ever want to buy an Xbox or play on an Xbox platform? Now, I'm going to be firing off a lot of points that people have been defending regarding Microsoft. First and foremost, do not ever defend Microsoft. I will never defend Sony because I want them to genuinely fail, but the thing is that if Microsoft is failing harder than Sony, Sony won't ever end up improving. So what's the point? Because it's like there's barely any competition there at this point. Regarding the fact that Microsoft has failed so dramatically, so spectacularly, that it's almost insane to think about. Yes, Nintendo is higher than PlayStation in terms of players. There's basically the number of platform, games sold, the number of consoles sold, yes. But the thing is that PlayStation doesn't consider Nintendo to be competition. They consider Xbox to be more so their competition than ever. But, it is what it is for the better part of all of what's kind of going on here. That being said, everything that Phil Spencer says here is completely meaningless to the fact that a lot of job cuts are being made, and he's touting the success of Microsoft and Xbox. But the thing is that what's the point in the success if people can't get keep their jobs in the space? So for people defending Xbox, saying, "Oh, this was a good business strategy," or "This was a good strategy for Xbox," or this or that, or this or that, don't do that. Don't say anything positive about Xbox because there's nothing good to be said about all of this. So basically, he just keeps going on. HR is working directly with impacted employees, do healthcare coverage, job placement, open opportunities in Microsoft Gaming wherever possible, and a bunch of other junk sort of in between. So where does this lead us in terms of the gobbledygook that we got from Phil Spencer? Well, basically Microsoft is cancelling Perfect Dark and Everwild. So basically there was a Perfect Dark reboot that was shown off about a year ago, and alongside that Everwild is also being cancelled and a bunch of people are being laid off, in addition to the fact that the developer for Perfect Dark, The Initiative, that studio is completely being shuttered as a result of all of this. And it's probably worth keeping in mind the fact that Matt Booty talks about the closure of the studio, The Initiative, as well as the people being let go. So, Matt Booty says, following Phil's note, I want to share more about the changes to the studio's business units. So basically, Matt Booty is the head of, Microsoft Game Studios, basically. What Phil used to do before he became, the head of Microsoft Gaming or Xbox or whatever you want to call it. We have made the decision to stop development of Perfect Dark and Everwild, as well as wind down several unannounced projects across our portfolio. Now, we want to keep this in mind because they did partner with some studios and completely ruin their lives. As a part of this, we are closing one of our studios, The Initiative. These decisions, along with other changes across our teams, reflect a broader effort to adjust priorities and focus resources to set up our teams for greater success within a changing industry landscape. We did not make these choices lightly, as each project and team respectively represent years of effort, imagination, and commitment. Cool, butter them up even more, I guess. Overall, our portfolio strategy is unchanged. Build games that excite players, continue to grow our biggest franchises, and create new stories, worlds, characters. We have more than 40 projects in active development, and that is a massive number considering that they own so many goddamn studios that it's not even funny. And the fact that they shouldn't even have these many studios to begin with. They should not have strong-armed and bought their way through all of this. They should not have bought Bethesda. They should not have bought Activision Blizzard. All of these are a knock-on effect from these purchases. And you might think, oh, that's incredibly unlikely. But the thing is that, is there anything else major that you could probably think of outside of market conditions, that I do in massive bleeding sarcasm quotes, that could probably explain even what the heck is going on there? Continuing momentum titles. Alright. For those affected, we are working closely with HR, so it kind of says the same thing. To everyone across our studios, thank you. Well, more like get the hell out of my office is probably more accurate here. Your creativity and resilience due to define who we are, okay, sort that. We're not going into any more detail regarding this with Matt Booty, but I want you guys to keep in mind something else that Matt Booty also said, and that was in relation to the fact that basically 4 studios were closed down last year, and one of those was Tango Gameworks. Never forget the fact that Tango Gameworks was shut down by Xbox before being revived by Krafton. Now, are they better off being under Krafton? Well, it's better to have a studio that still has 50% of its original staff than, say, for example, the entire studio to be completely shut down. If nothing else, Tango Gameworks still continues to exist. But it's also worth keeping in mind that Matt Booty did say that, to some extent, that Hi-Fi Rush was such a success in every possible measure, and yet the studio was shut down. In addition to that, we also have stuff like... So Jason Schreier did a little bit of investigating. 50% of Forza Motorsport developer Turn 10 has been cut. Now, I want you to keep in mind, Turn 10 makes Forza Motorsport and Forza Horizon. The most highly liked, most beloved, highest Metacritic scores of all time on Microsoft's end is a studio that is being shut down. Not shut down, like being halved completely. This studio makes the best Xbox games that Xbox will ever Xbox. These guys are being taken away. Also, there are multiple reports that at Activision working on Call of Duty, they're also impacted, including Raven Software and Sledgehammer Games. So far, just to recap on what we're talking about so far. Basically, 9,000 people are losing their jobs. A lot of that is being affected in the Microsoft gaming landscape. In addition to which, Perfect Dark and Everwild are being shut. Like, those projects are completely cancelled and the initiative is being shut down. In addition to the initiative shutting down, it's worth keeping in mind that 50% of Turn 10 has been completely cut, and also there are basically roles being completely removed from Raven Software and Sledgehammer Games. Now, going back to what Matt Booty said here about the Perfect Dark reboot, he did say that there are several unannounced projects across their portfolio. One such unannounced portfolio game was actually made by John Romero's studio, Romeo Games, which had an unannounced first-person shooter that they were working on. Unfortunately, because of all of the gaming cuts that have happened, they now need to shut down the studio, lay off everyone, and cancel their game. Xbox has made a decision that has completely destroyed a studio that no longer is going to be able to function anymore. As a result, legendary game director John Romero, unfortunately he won't be making a new Daikatana anytime soon, because let's be real, that was a bit of a mistake on his part back in the day. But, like, you know, a man can learn and a man can want to make games. But it doesn't change the fact that Microsoft has made a decision that's completely upended a bunch of people's lives that don't have anything to do with Microsoft. Romero Studios is not owned by Microsoft. They are a complete third-party entity to Microsoft. They have no relationship with Microsoft except for a single publishing deal, which has completely upended the entire studio altogether. I want to stress that as much as humanly possible. They destroyed Romero's studio, basically, just because they made cuts to unannounced games that they were talking about. Now, keeping that in mind, let's talk about This Is an Xbox, which is the greatest scam I think I've ever seen people fall for. So, I made a video earlier before talking about Microsoft, the fact that, you know, they are trying to pitch everything as an Xbox. If you have a TV, it's an Xbox. If you have an ROG Ally, that's an Xbox. If you have a laptop, that is an Xbox. If you have a vibrator with a screen on it, it for some goddamn reason is an Xbox. So you know what else was made into an Xbox? A Meta Quest 3S. Yes, that device did sell out, but unfortunately it sold out, I should probably say. But regardless of what it is, an Xbox is not an Xbox unless it is a Microsoft made device that is made with the specific intention to be played with an Xbox game. An Xbox console is the only thing that is an Xbox. Everything else that is being called an Xbox is not an Xbox, and I cannot stress that enough. Sure, you can use a MetaQuest 3S, but the problem is you need Game Pass. Why do you need Game Pass? Because cloud streaming is the only way to play Xbox games on there. A lot of the ways in which they're pushing that this is an Xbox is to build up their numbers regarding Game Pass. Because the only way to play games on all of these platforms across the board is by having a Game Pass Ultimate subscription, which is the highest tier of Game Pass, mind you, to be able to play games through cloud streaming. That is what the scam is. They're telling you everything is an Xbox, but the thing is that you can't play games locally, and for that reason alone, I can at least tell you for a fact it's not an Xbox. And any device like a laptop or a PC is obviously not an Xbox, because you're playing the PC version of those games and not the Xbox version of those games, even if, unless you're doing emulation, in which case, yeah, then you are playing the Xbox version of those games. But I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the circus that Microsoft is trying to sell you with the "this is an Xbox" campaign. If you believe in this campaign and use it as reasoning, you are genuinely so mentally retarded, I don't know what to tell you. So suck on that, people who basically hated on the fact that I talked absolute madness about, the Xbox version of the MetaQuest 3S. Y'all are the idiots, not us. And I feel like the people who are hurt the most are Xbox fans. So this is me absolutely taking a dig. As much as I don't want to and want to talk about the people losing their jobs, it is still worth talking about, because this is all part of the madness going on with Xbox and all of these roles being let go and things going wrong, and I just don't know what else to say. This is an Xbox also leads into the next part, Project Latitude. So for those of you guys that don't know, Project Latitude is basically Microsoft forcing Xbox to release their games, their first party exclusive Xbox games, on other platforms like rival platforms. This is probably one of the biggest reasons as to why Xbox is basically dead in terms of the exclusivity race. You might be thinking exclusivity was an old game and that everything that's happening at the moment is happening because gaming is moving forward. But it really isn't. It genuinely is not. Microsoft is forcing Xbox because Xbox is not making enough money for Microsoft. It's clear that Game Pass numbers just aren't doing it for them. And if you want to talk about Game Pass, head back to if you've just skipped to this point of the video, head back to the part where I'm talking about this is an Xbox. Because like I said, Game Pass really does feel like a scam, because they're trying to really rein in on the fact that they're trying to sell you everything else to be an Xbox. And a lot of people are talking about how Microsoft is a software company. That's why they're called Microsoft and not Microhard. But with that being said, just because they're not making hardware, their software is so garbage, it's so rubbish, I don't know how you could possibly defend it. Microsoft Office Suite absolutely sucks. A lot of the Xbox's first party games are not very good. They're bad compared to first party PlayStation games and first party Nintendo games. PlayStation and Nintendo from a first-party software perspective and from a critical perspective are running circles around Xbox in terms of quality. I cannot stress that enough. I don't know, like the fact that Gears is coming to PlayStation in August, I want to say, the fact that that is happening should scare any Xbox fan. It really, really should. You should be very worried about everything that is going on here. So basically, Xbox has lost so badly that they have to rewrite the rules of engagement as far as everything that's going on. The fact that the This Is an Xbox campaign has completely upended the way in which Xbox functions, to the point where Xbox has to release their first-party games on other platforms altogether. So ultimately, at the end of the day, the question then becomes, what the hell is an Xbox? What is an Xbox? Why is there so much lack of confidence in anything Xbox related? The fact that I don't think buying an Xbox platform is going to be any good anymore. They should just release a box with no gimmicks to it. They need to release an Xbox box and actually release some good exclusives for it that Microsoft won't force them to release on other platforms. They need to completely ditch the idea of using Game Pass as a way of being able to bring people in, because as far as they have it, Game Pass, while it's a good piece of a good thing for people of the audience, it might not be such a good thing for larger game studios. Smaller game studios, indie studios, yes, it can be, but for larger studios, it absolutely is not. And with Project Latitude, that doesn't make things any better. All of these things that are going on, all this madness that is going on Xbox's side, I cannot imagine what on earth is going on over there. And this has actually become a pretty long video now. I'm like at 21 minutes already as of me talking right here. So I'm basically just going to leave it at that. So basically, just to kind of really walk things through, Bethesda was bought by Xbox. So was the fact that Activision Blizzard was also by Xbox, and they became so big for their britches that they are now letting go of tons and tons of people from Microsoft, specifically 9,000. And a lot of them are affected in the Xbox gaming space. So what then happens? Perfect Dark gets cancelled, even though they showed off some gameplay literally a year ago. Everwild, a game that we've barely ever heard of, is also being cancelled. They shut down The Initiative, which, by the way, is the first, their quadruple A game, mind you, of all things that they could have possibly said. The This Is an Xbox campaign is completely ludicrous, is a scam that Microsoft is trying to sell you. It is complete snake oil, because this is dismantling Xbox and what it stands for. Mac Booty talks about all of this similarly to how Mac Booty talks about, I guess, the Perfect Dark reboot being cancelled, closing the developers, similar to how he talked about the fact that Tango Gameworks and other studios were going to shut down and never forgive them for what they did to Tango Gameworks. And then, even then, the dominoes start to fall on shutdowns and studios being closed. So you know what happens? John Romero's studio gets shut down because they had a partnership with Xbox. The poison runs deep, as some might say. And then Project Latitude, in addition to the This Is an Xbox campaign, just makes us completely question why we should ever trust Xbox, why we should buy an Xbox box at all, why should we even buy Xbox's games? If we're going to buy them on other platforms, don't buy them for Xbox, basically. And also the fact that they are very, very committed to the fact that they want to release more games on Game Pass, which Game Pass in and of itself feels like another layer of snake oil altogether that Microsoft is trying to feed us. So, with all of that being said, this was a long video. I had a lot to talk about. I am extremely mad at Xbox for lacking the sense of competition to really bring Sony's A game out. Because the problem is, Sony is currently doing their D grade currently, and somehow Microsoft is doing so much more worse that they are basically getting like an F grade in terms of the amount of competition that they're bringing to the table. The fact that for some reason they just can't light a fire under Sony's ass because whenever Sony screws up, Microsoft should take that opportunity to get ahead of them. But the problem is, somehow Xbox fails harder when Sony fails, and then Sony recovers, and then Microsoft, or Xbox rather, recovers a little bit and then fails again for some other random reason. Xbox is a miserable failure of a company, and I just can't even believe that I'm talking about what I'm talking about right now. So, with all of that being said, let me know what you guys think about all of this in the comments below. This was an incredibly heated video from me, but it also makes sense because I have every reason to be mad. Not as an Xbox fan, but as a fan, not even a fan, as someone who primarily plays on PlayStation and wants PlayStation to do better. Unfortunately, I don't think they are. So, yeah. Also, suck it everyone who got fooled by the "this is an Xbox" scam, because that advertising material was really just more so propaganda than anything else. But with all of that being said, however, like the video if you liked it. I'm pretty sure I'm going to get a lot of dislikes for this video, to be completely honest. But with all of that being said though, like the video if you liked it, subscribe to the channel. I'm aiming for 500 subs by the end of the year. With all that being said, I do upload every day, so I'll see you guys in the next one. This is going to be a big, chunky wonky of a video, as Omni would say. See you guys next time.